Great. So welcome to the virtual Agile meetup. It's really lovely to see so many faces here. So new faces as well as some returning faces. So thank you very much for joining.
Yeah, and a special thank you because this time around, in fact, is 3 years that we've been doing this amazing journey together. So it is our third birthday, believe it or not. It has gone really quickly. How in 2020, we sort of came together to bring people's ideas and practices as virtual Agile is a thing. It was a thing, continue being a thing. And it can work well. So learning from one another, it really matters. And I think for me, these 3 years and having this little space have taught me so much aside of the great connections that we made. So thank you for being here and for the time that you're investing with us from learning from one another.
And just really to introduce us, my name is Helen Garcia. I'm Agile coach and trainer. Work for an organisation called Agility in Mind, and Ines is my co-host as well. And Ines, you want to say a few words? Or
of course, with pleasure. So I'm Ines Garcia. I'm an Agile and climate coach, circular economy professional, biomimicry practitioner. So you can talk to me about many things, including Salesforce or permaculture and everything in between. And today I'm your host.
Thanks. So just a few kind of, let's call them working agreements, not really working agreements, but some boundaries or some ideas around what we do here. So we are a very, very open group. We just like to hear views, opinions. We like to have questions. We like to share knowledge. So if you've got a question, if you've got, maybe a challenge, maybe, a thought, a query, then feel free to just, come off mute, ask it, or you can whack it in the chat if you don't feel so confident doing that. Or you can even, direct message Ines or I or Jutta as well. That's totally fine. We may not see it as quickly, but you're welcome to do that too. We will be recording, as you can tell, we are recording right now. So we do recording so that we can share the knowledge that we learn in these sessions. Time box for this session is around about, what have we got? Should we go to an hour and 15 minutes? I usually get this wrong because I'm not capable of doing the maths in my head. But max an hour and 15 minutes. We don't like to take up a lot of time because, we're working people, we've got families, we've got friends, but we try and keep it as short as possible. And lastly, again, like I said, do utilise the chat box. We're happy and we'll try and keep an eye on it just with any, links or words or links of wisdom, anything you like in there really. That's appropriate, obviously. Just working with the boundaries. So I always like, if you've come to this session before, come to Virtual Agile before, you know that I like to do a little bit of a warm-up. There's nothing worse than standing there with cold hands. I'm sure you'll all agree. Nobody usually agrees with me at that point, but I do like to have a warm-up exercise. And actually, this is a bit of a tip and a tool, a decision tool that I use quite regularly. When I was doing a lot of Scrum Mastery stuff, I used to use this as decision-making tools of rock, paper, scissors. The beauty of it, as it is that it is fairly globally recognized. And if it's not, people don't know it. It's a simple game just to be able to teach. So we're going to have a go at this, and I'm going to just make sure that I can see everybody in the group. And if your camera's off, then I'm just going to trust you that you're doing this at the same time as me. So I would love to see your best rocks. This is a rock. Great. Love the emoji as well. Cool. And what about a paper? Excellent. Great, thank you. Ines always has a bit of a fancy floaty paper. And lastly, a scissor, but we do have to be careful. If you've had a bad day, just be careful which way round your scissors go. I'm going to go with this way. Brilliant. Mary Lynn, you're cutting some sort of shape out of your scissors, which is nice. Brilliant. Good. Okay, so the idea of the game is that it's rock, paper, scissors with a twist. I'm going to ask you some questions and you're going to say either a rock, a paper, or a scissor, depending on your answer to the question. So we'll do a little bit of a warm-up. So I'm going to go 3, 2, 1, and then just randomly show me any of your favorite, whether it's rock, paper, scissor. Are you ready? To make sure we all understand. Okay, 3, 2, 1. It's a little bit like singing on Zoom, this, because there's always a delay. So it's great for teams, but then you do introduce a bit of a bias. Anyway, right, so let's practice. First question is, who had a good summer break? A couple of papers, some scissors. Okay. Second question is, I work in IT products and projects, or products, but projects, you know what I'm trying to say. Oh, we got a variation of that, so that's good. Good. You're interested in sustainability. Okay, a few rocks out there. If you're not interested in sustainability, that's totally fine. You're interested in Agile, so stay, because we love to see your face. And actually, it's good to get, opposing views on things as well. So please do stay along. Your team or company are working to more sustainable practices. Ooh. Excellent, thank you. Right, okay, so with that, we're all warm. So everybody's hand a bit warmer. Can it, I can actually, yeah, nice. Okay, you're getting the grips of this. I love it. So the beauty is this hand is quite warm, but this hand is still quite cold. But, I'll do some movement in the background. Okay, anyway, I'll hand over to Ines.
Thank you. So yeah, curiosity may have killed a cat, but can save and boost your organization. A key skill, I think, when we're talking about the subject of sustainability. And that is why I'm so happy that we have managed to finally have today our guest speaker in the subject. And just before we introducing her in a minute, I love to point you to the Agile Alliance Sustainability. I'm just trying the link here for you. It's a members initiative from the Agile Alliance, and we are working on this. So let me just pop the link into the chat for who may want to join the tribe.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you, Ines. Okay, so done a bit of a warm-up, and now I would love to introduce you to the wonderful Jutta Eckstein, which I think, have I pronounced your last name correctly? Okay, good enough, good enough.
No, you're doing great.
Okay, good. So Jutta has worked as an independent, she works as an independent coach, a consultant, and as a trainer. She's helped many different teams and organizations worldwide to make that agile transition. Jutta recently wrote a book with John Buck. The book's called Company-Wide Agility with Beyond Budgeting, Open Space, and Sociocracy. Excellent. And in fact, most of you probably already know Jutta, because she's written actually quite a few books, I believe. So yeah, we know as well that you are a member of the Agile Alliance, and you also served as on the board of directors from 2003 to 2007. So you've got really good insight into that, which is really great. And you co-chair actually with my co-host, Ines Garcia, and also a couple of others, Maurice and Claudia, the Sustainability Initiative that Ines has just mentioned as well. So really, I think it's time, Jutta, for me to hand over to you and for you to tell us more about the work that you do in and around this subject. I'm really excited to hear it.
Thank you so much, Ellen. Yeah, it's really great to be here. I'm super excited. I'm also excited to see all those people who signed up and who are here. And let me now share my screen so that there is proof about the books that I wrote, as Helen just mentioned. And maybe just, I only want to point out like maybe two things. So one is the one that Helen just mentioned. That's this one, that's also called the Bossa Nova book with this difficult title. And the other one is my very first book that I want to point out, which is actually the first book on scaling, which I published in 2004. And you can imagine nobody was interested in that topic at the time. So that's kind of, yeah, my journey here. So some of you might know me from my books and from my work in the Agile space. And what not many know, and this is again, well, it's probably based because I'm in Germany, and that's where I got that education from, that I also have an education as a, here it is, I have to read this myself, Pollution Control Commissioner on Ecological Environmentalism. Isn't that a typical German thing? We always like to do like these long and difficult, clumsy titles. So I have done this certificate long ago. I've never really worked as a pollution control commissioner, but I just want to ensure you know that this is a topic that's with me, sustainability, for quite some time. And another thing that I want to point out is that this topic is really with me in my private life for an even longer time. And I want to share like one of the things, which is, well, first of all, and there you can tell that I'm quite old, back in the 80s, I was protesting in the streets and fighting acid rain and Waldsterben, how it was called as well in English, I believe. And the picture that you see, this is actually close to where I live and where I like to hike. And it's a good, well, not really good, but it is a resemblance of the forest in Germany. So just the last forest report that was published in May last year for Germany, there they found out or published and said that 80% of all our trees are damaged. And in the area, I really like to hike, well, maybe because it's so close to where I live, it often feels it's more like 100% of the trees that are damaged. So it is a serious topic, and yeah, it's really close to my heart. Another reason why the topic is close to my heart is because I'm a passionate scuba diver. And as a scuba diver, I'm really super concerned about the various forecasts that are made for the ocean. So like one of the forecasts says by 2050, we have to expect to have more plastic in the sea than fish. I'm not sure if I'm a passionate scuba diver then. Well, maybe I'm too old then anyway. So this is maybe the good thing. And another concern, which is much closer, which is that by 2030, the forecast says that all coral reefs will be dead by the time. So a lot of things are happening, and this is why I felt for a long time that I want to do something, and for a long time I only was addressing it in my private life. And I think I only started in 2018 to make a connection to what I do, like writing those books and helping teams and companies with Agile and so on, and connecting this to sustainability. And before I'm sharing what I'm doing there, I would like to hear from you. What kind of connection are you seeing? And you can put this in the chat, or maybe you unmute yourself and shout it out. I'm not sure, whatever you prefer. What are the connections, or what is the connection that you are seeing between Agile and sustainability? And if you see none, then you can also write this in the chat. I'm happy to see that too. Any ideas, anything? Systemic thinking is what I'm seeing here. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What else? What do you think they relate? Adaptability, as we see the need for change, innovation, every effort and product should be sustainable if that's, yeah, for the world. How to adapt and shorten feedback loops so we know the change we make. And Agile is the way to make those products. Anything else you think of? Greenwashing. Yes, also that. Very true. I said, I'm not very agile. Okay. Scale up system. Okay, maybe this is it for now. Let me see. I'm back where I want to be. Okay, thank you. Inclusivity, ensuring we have a just transition. Oh, very good point. Well, they are all good, of course, but this is something that people often forget. Thank you so much. I brought a little agenda with me, and this is my favorite agenda that I keep using all the time. And I'm just keep asking the question, what, so what, and now what? And we want to start with the what, and the what looks at facts. And some of them I shared already, like the forecasts, but I also want to look at some other stuff. Then the so what, we want to look into insights. And the real exciting part is then the now what, because this is what you can actually do. So this is perhaps the most important thing, and I hope you bear with me till we are there. Okay, starting with the what. Helen asked at the beginning kind of who is working in IT or on IT products. And even myself, I was like this. And well, the thing is sometimes for me, the product or the IT product is further away because I do like leadership education and stuff like that. And they might work on IT products, but the IT is then not my product anymore. But at other times, I'm also working with teams where we work on software. And so it's I think my paper was more like a so-so, sometimes like this and sometimes like that. And maybe that's true for some of you as well. So I want to take a look at IT right now, because I assume if you're hearing Agile, then you might have thought about Agile development or Agile software development. And sometimes we think software is not too close to the climate crisis. However, there are also some data that I want to share. And this is one forecast. And I know that the truth about every forecast is, well, we don't know how it will work out. And there are also other forecasts that might say something else, and you might be more aligned with something else, but this is just like one of them. So one thing is already right now, the carbon footprint of IT is actually about the same as air traffic. And this is sometimes, I would think, a thing we too often ignore. And we ignore it in the way that I hear a lot of talk about flying, which is important, and it's good that we do that. But I don't hear a lot of talk about IT and the consequences and impact of IT on like carbon footprint. So this is the one thing. So at the moment, we are about like 3% of the carbon footprint here, which we have in IT. The other thing is, I was saying this is a forecast, and that forecast has variations. And one of them says by 2030, it might be possible that IT has 21% of the overall energy consumption. So this means if we keep going and we keep ignoring that IT does come with a carbon footprint, then this is where we will be in not so far future. So there's something we should do about that. And the something is, of course, looking at sustainability, and this is why we are here, I assume, at least. And I asked you at the beginning, what connection do you see between Agile and sustainability? And the question was a little bit unfair. Well, I framed the context by sharing my acid rain protests and my passion for scuba diving, but I didn't provide a definition for sustainability. And I want to do that as brief as possible, because I assume some people have seen that too often already. And I want to provide the very first definition that has been given for sustainability, and that goes back to the Brundtland Commission. So Ms. Brundtland from the United Nations was doing a report, and this was kind of the first definition that came out there. And it basically says, whatever we do, we shouldn't live at the cost of future generations. So that's my kind of shortage of that, which is still a super important definition, which I also like very much, and it should be our guidance for really everything we are doing. Another definition that I want to provide is also from the United Nations, and this is way more fine-grained than what you see here. And the way more fine-grained, and you might have seen that as well, is the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And they are going in all kinds of directions. Now, to be very honest, when I started looking at how can I really relate sustainability and Agile with my work, I was looking at these definitions and I was thinking, well, as much as I like them, the one with the future generations is just too broad. It doesn't really provide a lot of guidance to me, although it's super true, right? That it's kind of, yeah, it's just vague here and broad. And the other one, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, they are, well, let's put it this way. I'm lucky, or maybe for the world, it's not so lucky that I'm living in Germany, in the Western world. And so if I see stuff like zero hunger, I'm all with it. But when I work with my clients on any software for, let's say, insurance companies or whatever it is, then this is a topic that's really hard to embed into the software. So what can the software do there? Well, like I can go and work on a different project maybe, but I wanted to look at what can I do in my regular work. And so the SDGs also didn't provide much guidance to me. Even the one that I definitely like a lot is the life below water, right? As a scuba diver, as you can imagine. So I was looking for something else which sits a little bit in between and gives me that possibility to make that connection. And that other definition that comes in threes. So it's called like 3 pillars, or it's called triple bottom line, and it has like various names, and it sometimes looks a little bit different than how I shared with you, but it's kind of along those lines. And the first one, the first pillar of these 3 pillars is the social or people aspect. And the social or people aspect looks at aiming for equity, health, and livability. And what you see here in this bubble here is that I try to make already a transition to maybe IT, to maybe any kind of business, to any kind of products you are working on, or maybe selfishly I am working on. And if I think of social and people and aiming for equity, health, livability, then what comes into my mind is, well, we definitely need to look into inclusion, diversity, safety, security, privacy, all of these topics. And we can do so with the products we're working on. Accessibility, of course, is also a topic here, or comes to my mind, at least. So that's that one pillar. The second pillar of that definition of sustainability is the environment. And well, it's about protecting the planet. It's looking at the carbon footprint, and also green software is something that we hear with that. And that's often, well, at least mentioned at times, that this is something we should do and take care of. Then the third pillar, which showed already, sneaked in already quickly, is the economic one, and it looks at improving the lives and prospects of everyone everywhere. So we can think of sustainable economies, also about responsible products. So it's more perhaps looking at it at a broader level, but also from a financial point of view, and if the whole product, for example, can make a difference. And please note, sustainability really means it's an overlap between all three pillars. And well, that's kind of the reason why I was quite happy when Owen said inclusivity, ensuring we have a just transition, because it's just too easy to focus on one pillar only, like the environment, at the cost of another one, most likely on the social one. So this is the thing that we see probably the most often here. Now, I want to share a few examples from products that maybe you have seen too in this way or another, to make that even a bit more clearer what that could mean here. And looking at the social, starting again with the social pillar, then one example, well, I found this back in the days when Twitter still existed, as an example from Shirley Wu, who was very frustrated and said, well, I wanted to create an account, but I couldn't because the system expected the last name to have to be 3 characters long at least. And so she couldn't sign up. And there are various examples like that. So definitely this is not the only system. We have seen stuff like that more often. And for sure, this is not inclusive. You could even maybe think it's also not accessible. So it's not a system that's open for people and helping people this way. And I want to be very clear here. I don't believe there was a team creating that system thinking we want to exclude people like Shirley Wu. We don't want to have those 2 character long last names. I don't think so. I think the problem here is that all too often, maybe especially in the IT world, we work with teams who are very homogeneous. So there's not much diversity. There are not many different perspectives. And this is why we often forget to look at other kind of people who would also need that system, and how do they differ from how I am? And we often don't see that, we don't know that. And so here's already one hint into what you can do, and I will come back to this also at a later point in time. In case you're working with personas, so which is kind of looking at who's your target audience and finding out how you best create the product towards your target audience, please keep doing so. But at times, go ahead and think about the complete opposite persona type of your target audience. And this way you will find out if you have excluded, for example, a Shirley Wu. So I'm not suggesting to give up looking at a persona and target audience. There's nothing worse than building a product that tries to fulfill all needs, but you still want to have your system being usable by all kinds of people. And that's why thinking of a contrary persona from time to time is something that can help you there. And of course, it would be even better if you can ensure that the team you're working with is really diverse. That's another thing that could help here to really find out what else, what other problems might lurk here. Then if we look at the environmental pillar, then I want to share the fact, which is again from the United Nations. They're coming up with an electronic waste monitor report every 5 years. So the last one was published in 2020 and therefore was looking at the year 2019. There was a plus of 21% in the past 5 years. And if you look at what amount of e-waste is generated, then you can see there it's really huge. 5,400 Eiffel Towers. That's ridiculous. And now if you think, well, I'm actually working on software. So what does this have to do with my work? Then I want to invite you to think of, for example, when are you buying a new phone? Most often you buy a new phone because the OS is not supported anymore, the apps are not running fine anymore, that the system gets really slow. So it is typically software that's pushing us toward buying new hardware. And the same is actually true in our business products. So very often the systems that we are creating are actually systems that often request from our clients to work with the latest hardware, to provide the latest hardware so that it's fast, that it's performant and whatever. And I will also come back to that, what you can do to ensure you are also here inclusive, that all kind of hardware is still there and supported, and you are not contributing to more e-waste here. An example for the economy, I'm not sure how many people we have from the States. I know of one at least, which is a very strong example, I would think. So this is about Chef, and Chef is a cloud software. And Chef is also a company that is supporting that cloud software called Chef. Sorry, this name is the same for the company and for the product. And it is, so the product is actually based on, or it's mainly open source. And then the company tries to support and helping clients to work with it. And developers found out that Chef, the company, has a contract with ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement in the US. Well, actually, they knew about this for a longer time. However, what they found out was that that system was used at the Mexican border to, well, do all that stuff, separate the kids from the parents and well, managing the detention camps and all of that, you know, kind of everything that's bad is also managed by software, and software is just everywhere. And so people found out about that and they protested and they demanded to expire the contract. And despite what you're reading here on the slide, nothing really happened for quite some time, until the moment there was one developer who said, well, I delete all my contributions. And he did. And that created enough pressure that Chef, the company, then decided to let the contract expire. So this then created that headline that you're seeing on the slide. But it was kind of a fight and a struggle back and forth. The thing here is, if we think and talk about responsible products, then we also need to sometimes ask twice, I think. Especially in Agile, we are often so much trained on make the customer happy. And you know, ICE was super happy with the product. They were happy. The system worked as it should. So it was all good. But we often forget to look another time and look at what's really done with the product. How is it used? And I know we cannot take responsibility for everything, but for some things we can. And so asking twice, what is it? What do you need it for? And do we really want to do that? And maybe you won't. That's also fine. It's along your values. But if we want to think about responsible products, then this is what we should do. Okay, I want to quickly invite you to try something yourself. So you see here a QR code that you can also, of course, type in the URL digitalcarbonfootprint.eu. And I also will share it right away on the slide. And the thing is, why I want to share that is very often websites provide the possibility to calculate the carbon footprint of an individual person. And then it's asking like, where do you live? Is it a house? Is it an apartment? How do you heat? And do you have a car? How much do you drive? Do you fly? Blah, blah, blah. They hardly look in any way at like what we are doing in terms of digital. So what are the digital products we are really using, and how can we deal with them? And let me now move over there. So what you can do there, and maybe you have figured that out already. So you can, for example, say, I have a smartphone. You can also click on it and then edit it and say, well, I might have even two, and I use it, I don't know, maybe not 24 hours, but 16 or whatever. And you use it longer or shorter. Actually, my last one lasted more than 6.5 years, but that's seldom. I know that. Do you have a laptop, a monitor? Maybe you also have a tablet, a router. I don't know what else. Definitely, we have a video conference right now. I do have some online storage and a printer and so on. So I'm not now editing all the details, but what you can see is that our whole digital equipment also comes with a footprint. And all too often, we look at other stuff only. And because, again, I wanted to bring together my professional life with sustainability, this is an important thing for me because I want to look at these things. And maybe one other note here. This is, well, I showed already the phone. The problem with equipment like that, I would say everything that you see in the digital carbon footprint here, is that most of the energy consumption goes into the production. And this is different to other products. So it might change over the years, but for a phone, 80% of the energy consumption goes into production. So well, sometimes I'm also kind of funny, and then I have my little solar power bank and power my phone with the solar power bank, but that's just stupid. You know, it doesn't really make a difference. What makes a difference is using it for a really long time. Now, again, this is different than, for example, a fridge. A fridge has a higher energy consumption during operations. And what I don't know, and I guess we will learn that over time, there's probably the fine line that will be crossed at a time where most of the products will have the highest carbon footprint during production, because most of the products are more digital products than anything else. At least that's where we are heading towards, which means for all of the products, as long as we are using them, the better it is. So this is kind of what I wanted to share with you. And you, of course, are invited to play around with that little website. And maybe this is something that's an eye-opener. I know for some people, like video streaming and Netflix and so on, is sometimes a surprise how much that takes and costs. And perhaps you think differently about that. Okay, let's move on. So what? Some insights. And I first want to take a look at Cynefin for a reason, and I'm not sure. Can I get, I don't know. Well, maybe I have to go through that quickly anyway. I just wondered how many people are knowledgeable about Cynefin or not. Let me just quickly go through that. And if you want to know more, you really should look it up. So it's not really an education here in it, just for what we need here. So if you look at the lower right corner, which is called clear, and Cynefin is for like how you can make a difference, how you can make a change. And clear means we are in a situation that's very clear for us, and where we want to head, what's our target, what's our goal, is also very clear. So one of my examples often is, well, I walk the streets and I see there is an empty bottle, and so I pick it up and put it in the recycle bin. That's very clear. Everyone can do it. It's a kind of that's also what it's called, a best practice. I go ahead in a sense because I see that bottle, I categorize, think, oh, that needs to go in the recycle bin. And so I respond to it and do just that. There's not much question about that. It's very easy, very straightforward. Now, there are other situations that are more called like complicated. And in complicated, it's more that you need expert knowledge. So one example often is, well, software development actually could be something like that, but also somebody repairing clocks or so. So you look at the problem, you first, you sense there's a problem, but then you need to analyze it before you can respond to it with your good practices. Typically, these are not best practices because they vary. So it's not that you're doing always the same thing because the problem is not exactly the same all the time. And therefore, your path towards the goal is also not the same every time. And that means from your current situation to the goal, most often what you do is you take a step and then you check, are you heading in the right direction? And then you make your next step and you're just checking if you're reaching your goal. And the question is best according to who? It's something that everyone can do and that always works. That's best versus good is something that works at times. Then we have complex over there, which is something where actually the biggest problem is that cause and effect are not really related. So very often it is you reach the goal at whatever point in time, and then you can look back and say, the thing what we did here is what helped us reaching that goal. So in hindsight, you know what helped you getting there. But if you would do the same thing again, you probably would end up somewhere else. So that's kind of that complex situation because cause and effect are not directly related. And often we talk about emergent practices here. And then there's chaotic situations. And I think I now want to share why I share that. And a chaotic situation, can be this. So your house is on fire, and definitely you will not start making a plan and asking like, okay, Ines, you now will do that, and Helen, you go there, and then we have a checkpoint and see if we are heading in the right direction or anything like that. If the house is on fire, we grab our stuff and run. We ensure that everyone who is alive is getting out here. So the thing is, acting is at the central point, and actually whatever happens later means we try to move in a different space here. So that's when the house is on fire. And now the reason why I'm sharing that with you is Greta Thunberg said, I want you to panic. She also said, well, you have to know the house is on fire. And she's right. We need to act. We need to act quickly. That's very true. And still, I doubt that this metaphor is the right one, because if we are panicking, that sometimes we are paralyzed and we are just doing things without much thinking. And so this is maybe not the best approach. And similarly, what I see governments are doing, they act on the climate crisis or the planetary challenges as if it would be a complicated situation. So they are planning like till 2050 or 2030 as well, and say, oh, let's do this and that. And then by 2050, we have reached whatever we are, carbon neutral or whatever we are, whatever the goal is for the various countries and so on. And as much as I like their ambition, the problem is once we reach 2050 and then we are not there, then what? And so what we really need to do is we need to understand that we are in a complex situation, and we need way more a scientific approach where we probe, sense, respond. So we do little experiments. We see if they're helping. Do they get us somewhere? And if yes, then maybe we do more of that. If no, we do something different. And definitely we need tons of these little experiments. And you know who is really an expert in that? The Agile community. This is what we do. That's what we do for a long time. And so this is kind of one of the things how we can help. And this brings me also to like what I see as Agile sustainability. So there are two areas. The one is sustainability by Agile, which is exactly that. We know how to deal with a complex environment, which is also some of the stuff that you mentioned at the beginning, like systemic thinking also, which is a thing that's needed, and we have a relation here. And so sustainability by Agile means that we can use all these practices, our mindset, and help solve the climate crisis or increase sustainability just on a general level. And there are some examples here that I want to share. For example, there's Africa Agility. That's a nonprofit organization where Agile mentors are helping, I believe it's mainly girls in Africa, to learn how to develop software, and therefore it's improving their life, and so they can make a living. And so it is people, they are like maybe in Europe, in the US, anywhere in the world, and they are helping these girls to get that knowledge. So this is one of the things, and this is the social pillar. Similarly, Hack Your Future is a nonprofit organization that's aiming or is supporting refugees and helping them to improve also their software skills, and also show them so they have a simpler way to get their next job. And there I know, for example, a colleague, Nicole Bellilos, she served Hack Your Future as a Scrum Master and helped the team to do just that, creating software. In this case, it was even really a cool tool. So they were creating a food saver app so that food is not thrown away. So it had also kind of the environmental aspect here. So there are various ways what you can do. Now, sustainability in Agile is a different way of Agile sustainability, which is where we use sustainability as our guidance, and we guide our own actions and outcomes. And for example, what we can do is we can use sustainability as a quality attribute. We build it in the definition of done whenever we deliver software, a new story, that we ensure that the energy consumption of the system is not increasing, and hopefully it is decreasing. And so that we really build all the thinking of sustainability inside our whole development process. So that's the other idea. And now I think it's about time to look at what exactly can you do? And I hope to be able to share some ideas. And if you pick one, that's already great. So I want to start with something that I referred to a little bit. Remember when I said, well, maybe you can look at personas and make use of those. And I want to stick with personas and want to share something that David Dame from Microsoft, a colleague that I really admire. He does really great stuff. And he's using a persona spectrum to ensure the system is really accessible to everyone. And the spectrum helped at least me to understand very clearly that if we talk about accessibility, that it really means every one of us, each one of us, we are temporarily able or not. And that's something that needs to sink in. Here's the example. So if you think of like a person who is deaf and can't hear, so this is a permanent disability. But you might have an ear infection, and so you temporarily can't hear. Or you might work in a super noisy environment, and that's why navigating the system via voice doesn't work for you. So this is the spectrum David Dame is working with in order to really understand that when we focus on accessibility, it helps everyone. And it's not like focusing on a niche and we might not have the time and money and whatever to do so. It's important and benefits all. And of course, even if it would benefit a niche only, it would be important to do so. But maybe this way, it's even a better motivation. So I also, for example, I find it kind of interesting, like seeing, and then you see like a distracted driver. Well, yes, that's situational. That could happen too. So that's kind of interesting, at least for me, or an eye-opener, how to look at this spectrum of personas. And maybe this is what you can do from now on. Then another thing that I want to share is taking a look at stories. Well, no matter if you use this format or not, and I will probably repeat myself a bunch of times that the format is really unimportant here, but it's just one way of defining stories. And you might have seen that perhaps in a training course or whatever, where you say like, as a whatever role user, I want to, whatever my goal is, so that I can, and here's also the rationale and the value that this thing provides to me. So this is kind of the way how you can always define stories requirements. Now, this is perhaps good. And even again, if you use a different format, you want to know who's benefiting from it, in which way, and why. So that this is a possibility for you to drive your development. Now, thinking of sustainability, we need more. And what we need is also to consider the impact. So you can then think of, and I think this was one too many, with the impact of, and now you think of the impact on environment, social, economic of exactly that story. And have a discussion on that. What is it that this story really implies? And here's the example that you probably have quickly seen. And we can discuss if this is a good example or not, but that's not the important point. So it says, as a designer, I want to reduce the amount of font types, so the page performance will increase for users and pages will be more digestible, with the impact of reduced CO2 emissions because of less data transfer. Well, this is nice, of course, if it's something like this. And my final disclaimer here, why am I always clicking twice? It's not about the form, it's about the content. So if you're using a different way to kind of define your stories, it's all good. The thing is, think about the impact. And now that gives me also the possibility to do a little excursion on fonts, because this example here is talking about font types, and you might think, oh, fonts, it's not so important. So here's an example. This is, I just learned how to pronounce the name, and now I forgot. Łukasz Jędraszek, I think is it, a Polish professor who ran an experiment by setting up a really simple website and having that website then built with different kinds of fonts. So system fonts, self-hosted fonts, Google fonts. And you can see there's quite a difference in carbon emissions for the various font types, with the system fonts definitely being the best. And this is now per year, here's per month. And still you might think, okay, well, this is not really much because, well, it's just fonts. And of course, you also have to think it was really a super simple website, so nothing difficult and so on. And even if you think, well, there isn't much, then what's interesting is there's actually this website where you can ask, how many websites are there? And it spits out like 1.11 billion websites are in the world, with most of them are actually inactive, which means nobody is really interacting with them, but still they are there and they are backed up and all that. So they are sitting there and they are still using energy. So that's the bad thing. However, my main point is, even if fonts are not really having this huge carbon footprint, scaling makes often the whole difference. And as I said, it was more an excursion for thinking about, like, sometimes the little things can make a huge difference here. Okay, we were talking earlier about electronic waste, that often this is created by software. And so what we really need to do is we need to support older hardware. And there are also various ways or kind of a key thing that we can do. So the one thing is we can use sustainability toggles for deactivating the features that are not supported by the client that's actually using the system. That's also called responsive design, where we just kind of realize who is really using the system. And just to get a picture of what's meant by feature toggles, and the people who are developing, they might know this much better, but there's a really great overview here, which is if we think of feature toggles, then we think of them in various ways. So on the one hand, that's the y-axis, we think of longevity. How long is that toggle in place? And on the x-axis, we are talking about how dynamic is it? So is it like active the whole time? Or do we always need to check if we have to activate or deactivate whatever is going on here? And so one example is release toggles. Release toggles are typically toggles that we deploy our system, but wait, there's one story, we were not really able to finish it. Or maybe we found still a bug when the tests were run, so the test failed. And so what we can do, we still deploy the system, but we put a feature toggle in so that story cannot be accessed and used by the users. And this is typically something that's in place not for long, because hopefully with the next deployment, maybe in 2 weeks, maybe tomorrow, it depends how often you deploy, that's gone and the story is in and it's built and delivered. And most often it's done just with the deployment and it's not very dynamic. Now, on the other hand, which is kind of a different extreme, experiment toggles. Experiment toggles are typical A/B tests. So we just want to learn what do users like and need. And so we have 2 variations of something. And therefore, this thing is maybe available for weeks, perhaps months, mostly weeks. It's very dynamic because it varies per user, because we have the A and Bs we want to compare and then make our decision what's better for what we are doing. And sustainability toggles are very close to what's called, what is known as permission toggles. Permission toggles are the toggles that look at, well, I'm logging in, and then my credentials decide on what I can use or not use, which features I can access or not. And sustainability toggles are exactly like that. So they check what kind of client is there. Is this an old system? Is it a newer system? And if it's an old hardware, then maybe we can tell right away which features will not be supported by that hardware, but the system itself overall is still running. So very, very similar to, as I said, like the permission toggles, like credentials and stuff like that. Then let me see how much else. Yes, I want to share one more thing here, one more what to do thing. Energy aware operations. So this starts with, we need to understand when and where low carbon electricity is available, and when the energy mix is renewable. And there are different ways how we can find this out. There's also, well, there are tools that allow us to look this up, but maybe you also know it like in your area, like in my area. During the day, definitely it's more likely that the carbon footprint is lower and it's more renewable energy because it's then solar. Wind is also often stronger during the day, not always, but it's more likely, versus in the night, it's more fossil fuel in where I'm living. So once you know that, then you can decide on executing operations asynchronously at the times when the energy is more environmental friendly. So, which is about tests or non-critical jobs. So everything that can be run asynchronously, you can then run at times when the energy mix is renewable. So this is something that you always can do. And well, now I would like you all to kind of think about what you are doing with your teams. And this is an excerpt of an assessment that I've co-developed with two colleagues, Claudia and Steve. And I would like us to take a look at this and then looking at the report and see what we can learn from that. So I want to invite you to take that assessment. And if you scan that code and answer, yeah, thank you, Ines, and answer these statements. And while you're doing that, I will check the answers. And once we have enough answers in, I want to share the results. Let's see. So let us see. The first data coming in. Yes, first data is coming in. I want to wait a little bit more. More data points. Good, good, good. Even more. And maybe for the ones who have answered, how difficult was that? A little bit more. I see some people are still booking on it. And maybe for some of the statements, you were thinking like, I don't know. And for others, I haven't thought about it. And for others, certainly, it's super clear. There's no more data coming in, so I'm not sure. I still, yes, there's one more. Okay, maybe this is where we are at right now. Okay, let's take a look at the result here. So, of course, it's not like a lot of data points, but still there's some. So you have answered some statements or evaluated some statements in those different dimensions. And just so you know, so this is an excerpt. You have answered 12 statements and the overall thing is 44 statements. And I really want to invite you to use that with your team and your company. It is, I will also share the link, of course. It has been published under Creative Commons. It's also available from the Agile Sustainability Initiative, the website Ines was posting at the very beginning. So what we see here, social is kind of the highest here with 3.9. Let me see, can I make this a little bit bigger so it's better for me to see? 3.9. We have economic, 357, I believe. Then environment is the lowest, so 319. And then we have holistic, 371. Let's take a look at, what did I want? Social, the thing that's the highest. So you have answered the three statements, and now the highest one is like the team prevents discrimination, disrespecting, or targeting of team members, and the other one is preventing bad actors. They're actually the same. It's 4 point. 1.4. And actually, to be very honest, this is something that I see more often, that these are topics that are with us for quite some time. So diversity, inclusion, ensuring that people are feeling safe, psychological safety comes with that. Then with that one, bad actors, privacy is here a big topic, which also became big just in the last 5 to 10 years. And this is the thing that gives me hope, actually. So although this is part of the social pillar and it's important that we keep doing that, but it gives me hope that this will also change over time for the environmental part. And if we look here, like the product service is designed to be accessible. Yeah, well, accessibility is just about to come. That's my impression. So we talk more about it, but it's not that it's like we talk always about it. Then let's look at environmental. The lowest is here, monitoring hardware utilization of the product, both in use as well as while idle. So I can imagine this never came to your mind to do that. And this is why we are not doing it. But why not? We can do it. It's possible. Then what is the understanding the environmental impact of the product? Similar. So we've never talked about it. And so we don't understand. Maybe we do everything right, but we don't know. So it's kind of a we don't know what we don't know thing. And then the energy being used in the office as renewable, that's also something that I see more often, that it's increasing, which is a thing that whatever is happening in the organization is actually something where sustainability is increasing more. But everything that's about value creation, which is what we do, we create products. So product creation, not much is happening here. So this is something where we have to get started and to work at. I want to share like one other thing what you can look at when you are using that with your team. And I really, again, I want to invite you to play around with that. So you can also look at the heat map, which means, oh, let me go back just a second again. So this was 2.86 as an average. And if we now look at the heat map again, then, well, actually, there is at the average value, nobody has really answered that way. Versus we have like 3 answered more false than true. And we have like 2 answered more true than false. Now, we are not a team here. But this is interesting if you're doing this and running this with your team, because what you find out is where are we lacking information? Where do people have completely different information or assumptions about something? The one say, well, of course we are doing this. The other one's like, I don't know, or no, we don't. And so you really want to work on this in order to increase sustainability. So this is also I think that assessment that helps you to have that conversation and to start working on it really and embed it within the development of your products. And so this is kind of what I wanted to share here. And I see also the time is running out, and that's why I want to go back here and ensure kind of my message with that assessment. Or here at the side, you see also, there's also that link again, but also on my last slide again, for the full assessment. And again, it's under Creative Commons, so you're free to use it. And you use it for changing your conversations. And by doing so, you can increase sustainability. So the thing is, we really have to shift how we talk about things, what we are talking about, and this way build sustainability in all our doing. And with that, I want to close and thank you so much. I have a bunch of links here. Here is again the initiative. Then here the bit.ly/sustainability is where the assessment can be found. But if you just remember the initiative, then this is good enough, because from there you find also the other stuff. So thank you so much. And I'm sorry, I really ran late, but maybe we have time still for some questions.
It's absolutely fine. Thank you, Jutta. That was I found that very interesting. I can already see where I might be taking some of these things and talking about them a bit more. But do we have any questions? It's I know we've had a bit of chat in the chat box, but I can't see any questions.
I'm sorry. I had troubles following the chat actually, so I'm sorry for that. I did at the beginning, but then not anymore.
That's all right.
Yeah.
To get us started, I can ask you one. We had 3 defined on the RSVP. So there you go. Here's my question. How to introduce the idea of sustainability in a big organization right in the middle of an agile transformation? So sounds all a bit chaotic. Any tips?
Well, actually, and this might be a little bit stupid, but if you can really start with that assessment, it's not really difficult to do, and it doesn't take too much time. And with that, you're starting having that dialogue, that conversation about it, and this will shift what people are doing. And this is really my absolute recommendation. It's also a thing where I often see that what's happening in companies with all the like ESG reportings, and so that especially in the EU, because in the EU the companies bigger than I think 250 employees, they have to report on their sustainability progress. Often what's happening there is completely disconnected from what's happening in the teams. And I think in order to make that connection, also the assessment can help to get started, and well, on the other hand, also to feel less overwhelmed, because that topic is so big. And then it's often, at least I often think like, okay, what can little me do about this? But well, there are things we can do. We can get started. And I guess if we do like the one step, we find the next step. So kind of finding the journey by going. And again, I really think the assessment helps here. Oh, thank you, Owen, for the Kneffin. Yeah, actually, yeah, I really think this is something we have to consider, that the climate crisis and these planetary challenges are really in the complex space. And that's how we have to deal with them. And dealing with them in a different way will not get us anywhere.
Yeah. So looking at the screen, I have one 30 seconds or less. Would you consider the Bossa Nova approach somehow connected with the degrowth movement?
I'm not sure. So I see it, well, the connection that I see, and this is maybe broader, which is kind of the responsibility about the planet and sustainability and all of that, so not particularly on degrowth, is what John and I learned was when companies are becoming more and more agile, so they are implementing company-wide agility, and with that, an expectation is created. And just like this example, if there is a company saying, well, we are agile and it has that reputation, and then people find out they are not paying fairly, people will say, well, I thought you're agile. And although this isn't written anywhere really, but this is the expectation that comes with, like, well, we are an agile company. And also in the same way, like if we are wasting energy, polluting our surroundings, are not responsibly acting in our ecosystem, really the same thing. People kind of connect these two. And I'm not sure, I guess the thing is, with Agile, sometimes people think, well, then you have to do good. And especially as a company, and you cannot really live at the cost of others. So again, it's not particularly on degrowth, but the main thing is that expectation that comes with company-wide agility, which is the bossa nova as well. Oh, and it was way more than 30 seconds. Ooh. Shame on me.
Your time boxing is in need of improvement. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes.
So it was a really interesting talk. So thank you so much for coming and sharing all your knowledge and your thoughts and discoveries along your way. We will definitely be posting these links out to our email that we send out to everybody who joins, and also you'll sort of find us on LinkedIn as well. So thank you very much, and we'll call it a wrap there, if that's okay, unless there's any dying further questions. I don't think there was. Good. Well, thank you very much for joining, and hopefully we'll see you next month. Good day.
Thank you so much, everyone.